Okay, the din that we're up to now is, we've discussed this concept many times. There's a difference, for instance, secular law, there's no obligation that if I see somebody in danger, I have no legal obligation to help them, to save them. I could just walk by and they cannot, and morally maybe I have, but legally they cannot sue me for a criminal act for not helping somebody. In fact, many times people, good Samaritans, help people out and then they do something, get sued for it yet, for the good deed they tried to do. But in halacha, in Torah, there's a pasuk that says, Leisamid al dam re'echa. Leisamid al dam re'echa means you're not to stand idly by when your friend is in a dangerous situation. So therefore, let's say somebody is, you're walking by the ocean, you see somebody drowning. So halachically, you have a biblical obligation to help them, or if you can't, even to hire somebody that's able to help them. You can't just, now, ideally, then you would be able to get the money back from the person, but what happens if you know he doesn't have any money? And if you're going to help him, it's going to cost you money? Halachically, you still have to help him even though it's going to cost you money. Because otherwise, you're transgressing the Isser of Dam Re'echa. Or another situation similar to that, if you know that there are people out to hurt somebody, or whatever, and if you know, let's say they're out, and you know that if you pay them off a little bit, they'll stop the charges against the guy. Let's say, for instance, something like that. So then you have an obligation to do that also. You know, whenever somebody is in a dangerous situation, whether it's financial situation, not financial situation, and you're able to help them out, you have a biblical obligation to help them out. Even if it costs money, so you still have an obligation, then the guy technically has to pay you back. But if he doesn't have money, you should do it anyway. Not going to say.
What if they are going?
The mitzvah, by the way, is Leisamid al dam re'echa, which according to most of the Rishonim, applies only to Jews. Because in secular there's no legal obligation. It's nice to do it, but you're not obligated to spend money or things like that. In fact, in the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamecha, you love your neighbor as yourself, most opinions say re'acha means only a Jew. Some poskim say re'acha means even a guy, because it's still a creation of Hashem. But as far as this obligation, Leisamid al dam re'echa, especially if it's an expensive money, then halachically you don't have to spend money for a guy. For a Jew you would. What? Achecha definitely means Jews. There's a lot of different reasons why the Torah uses different words. But when it says achicha, means that only a Jew, that's for sure. Like by ribis, right? It says lo achicha. So according to the Rambam, when it says in the Torah, la nochish sashich, lo achicha lo sashich. So it's interesting. The Rambam, I think, is the only Rishon that says it's a mitzvah to take interest in a guy. Other Rishonim, most of the Rishonim hold you're allowed to take interest from a guy. La nochish sigayish means you can't take interest from a Jew, from a nochish, from a guy you could take interest. But the Rambam says no. The Torah says la nochi sashich. It's a mitzvah. According to the Rambam, you have a mitzvah to lend a guy money with ribbis. You shouldn't lend him without ribbis. But again, most of the Shainim disagree with the Rambam with that, and that's the halacha, but you don't have to. But okay, now what happens though? They bring down some brings down l'cheish mishpat. Yerushalmi that nobody else brings down, they don't paskin like that, Yerushalmi. The question is, am I obligated to endanger myself though to save something? No, before we get to that. But I'm not obligated, let's say I don't know how to swim, and I want to try to save somebody who's drowning. If I go in there, I'm gonna get myself drowned, chas v'shalom. So then you have no mitzvah to do it. The only shaila is, what happens, it's a doubtful, a suffix sakana. Am I obligated to help another Jew on a suffix sakana? So the Yerushalmi says even a suffix sakana you have to, but most opinions don't even bring down the Yerushalmi. And they write that even a suffix of your own is better than a definite danger of somebody else. So even though they say the other person dangerous, definitely in danger, but you might be in danger, for whatever the situation comes up, then you don't have an obligation to risk your life, even on a suffix, to help the person. I'll give you have a lot of impractical examples today. Is somebody mechuyev to give a kidney if he's a match? Is he obligated? Somebody needs a kidney, okay, and you're a match for that person. Do you have an obligation to give the kidney? Now, what's the situation with giving a kidney? Number one, any surgery is halachically considered a risk. Any surgery is sometimes, especially general anesthesia, is definitely considered in halacha a suffix sakana. It's a form of sakana. Then granted, a person can live with one kidney, but it's still a bigger risk than having two kidneys. So the shaila is in halacha, if somebody obligated to give a kidney, if he knows the other person's a match and the other person must have it, and so halachically, the consensus, generally speaking, is you wouldn't have a chiyuv to. You could do it. You're allowed to do it, but you don't have a chiyuv. There's no halachic obligation. You must do it because it's still a risk. If it's a risk, it's a risk. Then you don't have to do it. You can have countless bone marrow, whatever certain things. Now, for instance, donating blood is not a sakana. It's not even a suffix sakana. So let's say somebody needs blood. I'm not talking general blood bank. That's a separate issue that a person should, if they're able to donate money to a blood bank. But what happens is a person here that needs blood, okay? And I have the same blood type of them. So giving blood is not even a suffix sakana. Nowadays it's not a suffix sakana at all. So then you would have a halachic obligation of Oisamer Adam Riacha to give blood for that person. Or if they need to take different blood, and if they take from the bank, they need to replenish it so you can give your blood, whatever it is. In those cases, that's not called even a suffix sakana. And donating blood, in fact, there's a very interesting tshuva, the Mesh Feinstein has a tshuva, is somebody allowed to b'chal donate blood? Why? Because you're hurting yourself. You're not allowed to chayvel ba'atzmei, you're not allowed to damage yourself. Because we don't own ourselves, contrary to American belief. We don't own our bodies, and therefore our bodies belong to Hashem. So you're not allowed to damage. A person can't just take himself and hurt himself like this. Take a needle and cause himself to bleed. It's halachically forbidden to do that. You're hurting yourself.
Who determines if something is sakana?
Medical professional. In the medical field, medical professionals.
So it changes as we go on.
It could be what was dangerous years. Listen, years ago, bloodletting was the form of medication. Today, nobody does bloodletting. It just doesn't work. There's a lot of issues. For instance, the Achreinim write about the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Deis gives a whole regiment of health things. What you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And the Rambam writes at the end of it, whoever keeps my diet, I guarantee him they'll never be sick a day in their life. Okay? Yet we know the Rambam's medication that he prescribes in the regiment of life is not, doesn't work today. So it doesn't mean Chas V'Shalom the Rambam is wrong. It's just that the human biological setup of the person changed. So what was good years ago is not necessarily good now. Now we have other medical improvements. What was a very dangerous procedure years ago is now routine. So if it's a routine procedure, it's not as severe as something that's... I'll give you an example. We spoke about this when they first came out with heart transplants. Okay? So as everybody knows, the first recipients lived a little while and then they died. So there was a shiloh that Ramesh Feinstein wrote a tshuva, are you allowed to, number one, be a donor? And are you allowed to receive a heart? So he writes that then he wrote, you're not allowed to because it was a sakana. No, the question was, are you allowed to receive a heart? Giving you can't anyway. But are you allowed to receive a heart? So he paskin then that you're not allowed to because your own natural life, you might end up living longer than what you would with the heart transplant because the people didn't live long. But that aspect of it changed today, not because he was wrong. Today it's a different story. So a person would be allowed to take a heart, to be a recipient of a heart donation, because today it works. You know, there's enough medication. It's the
What about fish and meat? What's the sakana on that?
once the Torah says sakana, it's sakana anyway, regardless.
Torah said that.
I mean, the Shulchan Aruch says so, the Gemara says so, it's sakana.
Is it completely sort of for organ donors? Well, when someone, if they give it
It's not a forbidden to be an organ donor. After you die, you mean?
someone died.
You can't say it's forbidden. A lot of contemporary poskim today encourage it. It's more honestly, the modern Orthodox poskim encourage it very much. The more right-wing poskim don't allow it. But again, there's a lot of dinim involved. You're allowed to donate if there's a chayla right by you. So then, there's a chayla fanenu, it's called. If there's a chayla fanenu, then you would be allowed to give it. Even though a mess is asir b'hana, but that person, he can benefit from it. But here's pikuach nefesh. So now the question is, today, a heart transplant could be a guy in New York from California, and they'll get the heart there. So is that called the fanenu or not? So it's another machlekes in contemporary poskim, if that's called the fanenu or not. But generally speaking, organ transplants, it depends what. You have a difference between cornea and, I mean, there's so many different things. Sometimes it kills the donor, like heart transplants, according to most cheetahs. Other things is the question of the recipient. But again, coming back to this din, is a person mechuyev to put himself into a suffix of his life to be yated mekayim l'samad adam re'echad, not necessarily. What?
What was the conclusion about donating blood?
Oh, so the shaila they asked him was, because you're not allowed to do chavala, you're not allowed to injure yourself, is donating blood allowed? And he writes that you're allowed because the chavala is minimal and the help is way beyond that. So it's in comparison to, it's not called chavala. Chavala, just to take yourself and make yourself bleed, would be asur. Minat Torah, by the way. But stam to do it for a cause, in fact, there was we mentioned, the Rebbe brings down in one look at the Sichas, now it's already in different places also, is a woman allowed to pierce their ears. We learned already, there's a whole shilas with cosmetic surgery. It's chavala. So the question is, you have to weigh the issues. But the question was, are girls allowed to pierce their ears? Or women, for that matter. So there was a mistake. First they came out with a letter that the Rebbe said no, but it was Mr. Mamish, they rewrote their letter wrong. The Rebbe writes that you're allowed to. So the girls should wait until they're a little bit older to ask them. But he again explains, the chavala is nothing compared to the feeling of having it. And it's not like surgery. Cosmetic surgery is mamish surgery, so that's a much bigger risk than the other stuff. What?
The girl would appreciate it if she had gotten when she was a baby, where she was not conscious of the baby.
That's one of the reasons why today, even in the very frum world, they do it very young, before the girl even talks. Because they know later on, they realize it's better then, because now it's over with. You know, the pain is over, and now so that's one of the reasons why they don't even ask today. I mean, they don't ask the kid. Because you assume that that's what the kid wants. But this is any case of, but if it's a suffix, what?
So like LASIX, if you could go with glasses, can you opt in for LASIX, which is optional, completely optional?
Okay, all I can tell you is, I know people do it, but the Rebbe's opinion,
What's the question?
if you could do LASIK, you're allowed to do LASIK eye surgery if you can wear glasses. The Rebbe's opinion was, not to do things foreign to the body if you don't need to. In other words, if you can wear glasses, why would you do LASIK? Because, especially when the Rebbe wrote those answers to people, it was when LASIK was new. So nobody even then knew what the future outcome of it would be and will be, whatever. The same thing, the Rebbe didn't, B'chlal, the Rebbe's shita was that you don't do foreign things to the body. Moshe, the Rebbe was very strong about pregnancy, during pregnancy not to do ultrasounds. Unless if it's medically needed, that was the Rebbe's opinion. The only time you do, if there's an issue, the doctors have to see or whatever, there might be an issue, the doctors need to know. So then the Rebbe said it's okay to do. Otherwise, the Rebbe, in other words, just regular routine ultrasounds, why are you putting rays? To actually rays, into a person's body. You don't know. Again, these are all relatively new things. They don't know long-term things about that. But what?
To follow up with that, braces as well.
Braces, no. Braces not. It's not a sakana. It's not a surgery.
Yeah, but LASIK are also.
No, LASIK is surgery. They put laser into the eye.
Yeah, but you're up. Meaning.
No, it doesn't mean it's still laser. It's still a procedure in the eye. Listen, years ago, I was speaking to eye doctors, out of curiosity. I'm talking about even 25 years ago. I was speaking to doctors. They said, I would never do LASIK. It just came out. Who knows what the long-term procedure. The eye doctors would tell me I would never do it. I wouldn't let my kids do it. Now it's very successful. I'm not saying. I'm just saying the Rebbe Shita B'chlal was not to do surgeries or procedures if you don't need to.
And hair transplant is the same thing?
Hair transplants.
Get a wig.
Get a shaitel.
And when they put it on, it's not a chatzitza or?
It might, no, once it grows, not a chatzitza.
When they put it on the first day.
First day might be. It might be, and then there's no din of chatzitza anymore, because then it's growing. It becomes part of your...